Let's talk about Sarah Michelle Gellar, who is opening up a bit more about Buffy the Vampire Slayer in this reboot. So, despite its wisecracking titular heroine, Buffy the Vampire Slayer is no joking matter, especially when it comes to this new reboot and especially to Sarah Michelle Gellar. She's saying, I ain't joking, bitch, in the words of Coco Montrese. So now that news of the upcoming Buffy the Vampire Slayer revival is finally out in the world, the actress is battling nerves instead of bloodsuckers. Gellar recently told People that while the response from fans have been exciting, she said it also caused some anxiety to know the expectations are so high, saying, quote, I wish there was a better word than overwhelming. This is what she told the outlet while attending the 12th annual Makeup Artists and Hairstylists Guild Awards on February 15th. First of all, shout out to all the makeup artists and the hair people that work, hair makeup people that work in the industry. I didn't even know y'all get awards for what y'all do, but it's good that y'all do that. And especially the ones who do makeup and hair and stuff in the world of special effects as well. Like the amount of work and the immense talent that they have, I'm glad that they're being rewarded for what they do. So she also added, nerve-wracking because you have to do it right. Now, luckily, Gellar has plenty of confidence when it comes to the team assembled to help Buffy's return to the small screen, saying, I think we have this team in place that is legendary, from Chloe Zhao to the Zucks, as in Nora and Lila Zuckerman to Gail Berman. Well, Gail Berman, I believe, was on the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I think people are going to be pretty impressed. So now, earlier this month, AEW confirmed that Gellar was in talks. Well, it wasn't just EW; it was all the major trades confirmed it. Was in talks to resurrect the beloved Supernatural series with the sequel, and also Sarah Michelle Gellar, after a couple of days, even went on the record and it revealed that yes, it's happening, and she wanted us to hear it from her. So once we heard it from her, even though I already believed it because if Variety, Deadline, Hollywood Reporter, if all the major trades are reporting it, then more than likely it's like, yeah, it's true. They pitch a lot of these stories and stuff to these, you know, conglomerates for them to report on, unless you're a tabloid, then that's something different. But for the most part, when it comes around to a lot of these things, the PR people, they pitch all of this to these major magazines and trades. So within days, Gellar broke her silence on the project, sharing a lengthy note about her decision to get involved after years of affirming that she had no interest in reviving the series. She explained that it all began when Berman asked her to meet with Zhao, the Nomad Land and Eternals director, who had a take on a potential Buffy revival, saying, we laughed, we cried, but mostly we talked about how much the show means to us. While I didn't agree with anything in that meeting, I did shock myself by agreeing to continue the conversation. And I feel like, look, if there's a story there, and I've always said that, like, if there's a story there about anything, then if it causes for a revival, then why not visit that? Why not go there and just be like, you know what? There is something to explore here. And I do feel like even if you didn't bring back Sarah Michelle Gellar as Buffy, the whole Buffy verse is definitely a world that needs to be explored. If you want to take on another Slayer or whatever the case is, but we're in an era of nostalgia, especially my generation who grew up with Buffy. Like when you're an elder millennial and maybe a little bit of Gen Z, because I know that now a lot of the Gen Zers are starting to watch Buffy, and I see that there's a lot of people who are even doing full-on breakdowns of Buffy the Vampire Slayer on YouTube. So this show has had legs for the many decades that it's been on the air, over 20-some odd years. Because, I think, what was it, 2003 when the show was done? 1997, yeah, like 2003, I think it ended. So that's about 20 years ago, 20-some odd years ago, 21, 22. Who's counting? So you can definitely see a reboot. And I feel like, yeah, and I've said many times what I would think they can go. She could either be a watcher, but also has that Slayer background. So she can jump in and do way more than what Giles did, and many of the other watchers that they've had in the past. She's a wider that could beat people up. She ain't like Giles, who we didn't learn until later on in the franchise that he was the Ripper. And then, so he had this dark side of him. And then you had Wesley, who was always getting his ass beat until years later when he went over to Angel. And then he kind of became like sort of this, butt kicker. So it always was like after the fact. Y'all started him off as like these very by the book nerdy types who then show this darker side, and they take their glasses off, you know they mean business. The Ripper did it, and now Wesley doing it. So that was always the cackle back in the day whenever they would take their glasses. Oh, shit about to go down. It's about to get serious. It's about to get severe up in here. That's the way that they would go about it. So either that, or you have something where it's like Buffy and one of her, she has a daughter, or maybe they could do something that was like there was something that happened. She gave her daughter, because it's been 20 years, so y'all could kind of play that up. There's a side of Buffy we don't know. Buffy had a kid, gave the kid up to protect the child, whatever the case was, because she had gotten pregnant. Didn't want to bring a child. She didn't want to have an abortion or whatever. Just wanted to give the child up because she didn't want them to be about this life. Unfortunately, that whole that whole Slayer thing doesn't escape you, and so the kid is feeling a little bizarre, whatever the case is. Stuff is happening, maybe having little supernatural dreams, but they're basically premonitions. And then they're trying to come after the kid to kill them, and she finds kill the kid, and then Buffy finds out what's going on. But she's always kind of had this eye on, like, have the kid protected, but has a kind of an eye on what's been going on with the child or whatever the case is, and then kind of start this whole rekindling of a relationship. I don't know, they'll figure it out. But so I'm relatively interested in seeing that part, because Buffy, one of the things I loved about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, she wasn't perfect. Like, there was always things about her that we loved her in certain situations, and then it was like, girl, I don't agree with this, but we're gonna follow you into that hellmouth until the end, even though we don't agree with always your decisions that you make. And she always made mistakes, and I think that's why we loved Buffy. And I feel like that character has always rubbed off on the way other people approach their shows and their movies, where you make your hero not so perfect that they can't ever make a mistake. They can't ever, like, it was always that human side. So I'm actually pretty, as I said, excited for this show. I'm glad that she's overwhelmed. Well, I don't want to say that because that's not good for your anxiety to be overwhelmed, and your nerves and all that stuff. But I get it. It's like, you love a show so much. The show was so great back in the day. Entertainment Weekly, I remember the amount. You have no idea for if you're of Gen Z, Gen Alpha era, whatever. The amount of articles that Entertainment Weekly did on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and how they love the show, and it was just like they worship the ground this show walked on. It was always rare to see a show so good on a network like the WB, now the CW, and all that other stuff. So, because there was, back in the day, the WB, UPN, all those networks, and Buffy did go to the UPN network at the time. So that's why I'm bringing them in this. Those networks were looked at as a laughing stock. Nobody took them seriously like they did CBS, NBC, ABC, and Fox. Those were like the big, mainstream, you made it networks. But if you wound up on a CW, which is basically for my generation, that was like the network for, us young kids coming up, where we had stuff to watch. Like Buffy, Felicity, Angel, Smallville, Roswell. And then we, years later ended up getting the superhero stuff like Arrow and The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow, which was okay. It wasn't the greatest. And then Supergirl came over there from CBS. So we always had like this. So that was the network basically for like the younger generation. And we basically made that channel what it was. And then, of course, Supernatural, which is, of course, one of my favorite shows. So I like the fact, I don't like the anxiety part for her, but I do like the fact that, we want to get this right and we want to take it seriously and we don't want to let the fans down. I just say, if you got a good story and y'all know what y'all doing over there, you'll do it right if you do it the right way. Just be more like Dexter, the new one, the prequel series, where it's like more than that. I was like, oh yeah, this is a great show, versus when y'all bring certain revivals back and it's like, what the hell was y'all thinking? So I say all this to say, what do y'all think of this story regarding Sarah Michelle Gellar saying that, yeah, it's incredibly nerve-wracking because we want to get the show right and we don't want to let the fans down in regards to this reboot. So whatever, or sequel, of sorts. I guess we can call it that since she's coming back. So let me know what you guys think of this story in the comments down below.